Meow.
Grr, grr, meow, meow.
Oh yeah. That's a
Susie's
good one.
very Susie's very generously helping my body today. I'm a bit croaky, and as soon as we got onto this StreamYard, she started coughing. So how brilliant are our bodies?
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is actually it is one of those topics that in Access Gary and Dane look at a lot. Sorry, I can talk. Um, Bodies, how bodies communicate with each other, how they assist each other, and I really do get that the whole conversation about bodies is just beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As a little side note here, because yeah, it is funny, like literally coming on with Viv, and my body started doing really interesting stuff, and I'm like, okay, alrighty, good body, good body.
And no
So,
need to take it on body either.
well, but that's the thing, though. I think if we really just were willing to receive and also like gift and receive without having a point of view, things could be so much easier. And I think that's also like in our conversation today. Do cats really boss us around? We come to conclusions about things so quickly. Our bodies, like my body now, doing funny thing for since we got on. Okay, I'm not even sure if it's doing it for your body or if it's just giving me information about your body or like. But if we don't ask a question, then we sit there and assume, oh my
Mm,
God, don't take on my disease
mm.
because that wouldn't be good. I was in bed for a week and I couldn't barely move. And, don't. And then, hello, then comes the logical mind. Well, I'm in Germany, you're in Australia. It's not like our germs are passing through the broadcast. So, I mean, all this conversation. And I think that's the funny part too when we go into these conclusionary realities and then we really get stuck there and then we kind of turn around and around in the process, but what's really going on is something way outside of that.
Mm.
So yeah.
And the thing about conclusions is it totally takes away any space to ask a question. You've come to a dead end street and then you just kind of walking forward into the dead end street without asking a question. Okay, well, what else? Which other direction is available? So, and it's interesting with cats, as you were saying, Susie, just before we hopped on, about how so many people have conclusions about cats. This whole thing of that catchphrase of dogs have masters, cats have slaves. It's like, how many of you have bought that story? They're different. They're very different. They function differently. Their time with us and how they function with us is very different too. And it doesn't mean that it's these people come to conclusion about cats being aloof or being superior or snooty. It's like, no, is that actually what's going on? Or are they just so present being them that they don't have any need for that reactive reality that people jump into? Like if a dog was doing that, I think there's a different conversation. But when a cat does that, do we automatically assume and run the same conversation and assumptions over what the cat is being or choosing or showing us?
Yeah.
Mm.
And especially, the whole idea about us being bossed around by them, yes, that's why I picked that, because of that phrase, that cat have slaves. Yeah. And I've lived with cats a lot of my life too, and dogs. So I've really been around them both. And I do have to say, yes, what if we just celebrated their difference and not necessarily try to categorize them? Um, and in that sense, also judge them because, yes, they are different, but there's so many myths out there about cats that I actually busted just from experience. Like, for example, the idea that cats are not really attaching themselves to a person, but that they're always attached to a place. And I've had so many conversations with people about that when they're moving. Should I leave my cat? Like, my cat doesn't probably want to come with me. My cat wants to stay at the house. I'm like, can we ask a question about this first, maybe?
Yeah, I had a very dear friend of mine move from Australia to the UK and took her cat with her. And in hindsight, I now recognize, this is probably about 10 years ago, but I now recognize there was a very needy relationship that was built there. And because she was leaving Australia and all her family, the cat was her, her surrogate, what do they call it? Her emotional support animal. And this cat, as soon as it got to the UK and settled in, it kept going across the road to the neighbours. And she'd go over there and pick the cat up and take it back again. And the cat would go over to the neighbours again. And I arrived and I said, hey, can we ask the cat a question? Can we ask, does it want to live between two houses? Does it get attention during the day and company during the day when you're at work? And that's basically what it was. But she was going into this whole story of, my cat doesn't love me anymore and he doesn't want to be around me. And she's a bitch. She's locking the door and not letting my cat out. And she's probably feeding him. And it was all of these conclusions that she was coming to, and none of them were a question. So once we had a conversation about it, the cat was a lot happier. She was a lot more relaxed and realized, maybe I need to have some more people in my life rather than depending on my cat so much for everything.
Oh, wow. That's a big one too, right? I'm sure things changed after that.
Yeah, she got a guy in her life for about the first time in 10 years. So,
Wow.
it's incredible what they actually facilitate us with, and to look at when we don't have a conclusion in the way, or a reason or a justification.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Susie, that's exactly what our logical mind does. It tries to come up with the most obvious, logical, I'm going to be a detective and come to the conclusion here, and that's the answer.
Yeah.
But that doesn't allow for anything else to change or anything else to show up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are answer people. We have been taught to have an answer and come to an answer and have answers for everything, and then and then we're good. But yeah, a lot of times that's really not what's being asked for here. So
So
yay.
does
Yeah,
Paul boss you around?
absolutely. Well, it is interesting. So, one thing that cats have that is very different from dogs is their eating behaviors. And I have to say that a lot of people can easily become slaves to that. I just had a conversation with my friend and here in Germany, and she doesn't have a lot of money, and she inherited the cat that her parents had, and both her parents died, and so then she had the cat, and she was like, and now the cat died. This is 2 years later. So the cat just died. She was like 20 something. So, but she said, oh, now I saved myself a lot of money because I kept buying all this food because the cat wouldn't eat what I was providing. And, and that's one thing where I feel like cats really a lot of times wrap us around their paws is they're eating, or not eating really. They can be very tricky and finicky and with all of that. But at the same time, again, a lot has to do with what you are willing to have a look at here. And my point of view is like, hey, I will provide you the best possible foods here that you can have for your body, but I'm not going to turn my whole life over to feed you.
Mm.
And I think this is sometimes where it's not about coming to a stance where like, well, I'm just going to put this down and you eat it whether you like it or not, but to really be in the question, hey, what would you like to eat today? And I have to say, like, cats can be great teachers about asking questions with food because they don't, generally speaking, are going to just eat the same thing over and over and over for the rest of their lives.
They like variety. It's funny, I'm having a little internal giggle here at this exact conversation, Susie, because we've joked often about my dog being a lot more cat-like. with her meal. I've never ever had a dog that walks away from food and leaves food in the bowl, but she's taught me a lot about, okay, well, I get over my point of view that all dogs eat all their food, and she has introduced a very different way of being the question. And for those of you that do have cats that are a bit of they're more a finicky eater, or they know they're more particular, when I used to go shopping, it was like I'd look at so I'm in the pet barn or wherever I am, I'd look at the food, whether it was kibble or fresh meat or treats or whatever it was, and just tune into Bella and go, okay, which of these does your body require? What would you like this time? For the next week or 2 weeks or however much food I was buying at the time, I'd ask her to show me what it was. And I'd find myself buying things that I wouldn't normally buy. And it worked. Funny that. Imagine that.
Exactly. But yeah, what if we really were willing to use just their different way of being as a way to challenge ourselves a bit more, and you were asking me earlier, does Paul boss me around? And it is a different relationship I have to Paul than I have to the dogs, but also I have a different relationship to each and every dog, so I don't try to treat them all the same. And because they are not the same to me, and it's not about trying to make any of that significant. I think that's the part where a lot of times people go, like, I'm not allowed to love my cat more than my dog, or I'm not allowed to love my dog more than my cat. Why not? Why not? Who makes up these rules like that you have to treat everyone the same? You can't, because you have a different relationship with every animal in your life, and you can't treat them all the same. And it's not about being fair. Don't be fair, be aware. Well, how about that?
Don't be fair, be aware, people. And how does your awareness expand? By asking questions and just learning to be with the animal and be present. You may not get a logical answer straight away. The cat might not mouth back to you in English or whichever your language is what that answer is, but that awareness will find its way into your life. And that's the magic of animal communication. It's not going to be how you would communicate with another person. It might be, and it might be something totally different to that. And this is why I love cats, particularly because they flex a different muscle of communication than dogs. I guess it's when you're with different people, you've got some people that are really open-minded and that you can go to all, topics and ranges. And then there's other people that you just know not to go in certain directions or talk about certain topics. So, with your animals, and especially cats, I think people assume, oh, well, you can't train a cat like you can a dog. And so again, there's another barrel load of assumptions that we're making, rather than, okay, well, you may not be able to train a cat per se like you would a dog, but what different relationship, what different space of communication and communion is actually available for you with cats that may not be available with dogs.
Yeah.
And
even that is, to me, not completely true. I had a friend in Italy who had several cats, and she had trained them all to do like almost circus work. She every evening she would perform with them, and this was fun for all of them. And she would, have them literally jump through hoops. She would have them climb things, sit on things, do all sorts of tricks, and she had taught them all to do that. And so it was almost literally like in a circus performance, where she was outside and had them do all these things. And again, the cats, it's a different approach. And I think we as people, like when we are training an animal, we're often training them so they do what we want, but it's not really coming from a sense of, hey, will you do this for me? Can you do this for me? How about having some fun together here? But we're teaching our dog like the command come and sit, and we expect them to perform that 100% of the time. And a lot of dogs will do that, but at the same time, we assume that with cats, that won't work. You can't expect a cat to do something 100% of the time. Well, what I actually learned from my cat, Baba, a long time ago is that if you actually give her a choice, she will also do it 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But she has to do it from choice. So I could never demand of her that she would jump up on the bed, for example. I could never say, Baba, come up, jump on the bed. She would be looking at me, and if I said, hey, Baba, jump up on the bed if you want to, she would always jump up. I mean, it was literally so easy to just say, only if you wanted to, you have choice. You know, um, I mean, this sounds insane, but it's so interesting. Like, and I learned so much about that too, just about having that sense of, yes, I'm asking something of you, but I can't actually make you. And I think this is the part too. What if we actually had that with people too, where we had more allowance that way? And we say to someone, hey, this is what I would really like. And if you desire it, will you please deliver?
Mm.
That would
Yeah.
also be a different approach, because then we wouldn't be mad at each other anymore for not delivering.
And that has a totally different energy to, sometimes we think we're asking a question, but it's actually a demand disguised as it's more like a statement with a question mark. It's not really a true invitation, because I think when people have that demand or force or expectation in the world, the other person senses that, and it sometimes can close down their desire to actually gift, even if they would have done initially. It's like, so how are you asking? What energy are you being when you're asking those questions? Are you still, are you giving them the choice? Are you giving them the, okay, if you would like to, this is what I would really like. So that's a really major conversation to have, Susie. That doorway with people, especially with your cat, it's like, okay, but to apply that, and this is where I love the tools of talk to the animals, because it totally, it feeds through every relationship you have, not just the animal kingdom, but every person, every interaction you have. So if you're having problems communicating or asking for things or receiving things, maybe look at how you're asking for it and what you're being. Is there a demand or a force or an expectation with that ask? And you're thinking it's an ask, but it's not. It's a command.
Yeah.
And not many of us like being commanded at.
Exactly.
You
And
like to be told what to do without a choice.
exactly. And I have to say, like, even with my dogs, my dogs are not trained to a degree where I could say they will do 100% what I'm asking for. They're not. Um, and the interesting thing is, I also don't nag on them with something that I know they can do. I don't nag them with that. A lot of people will basically reinforce what the dog knows by basically, like, telling them to sit. A dog that knows how to sit, sometimes I feel like people are just doing it at will, just to kind of prove that, hey, my animal is, listening to me or something like that. And I find that sometimes very strange. And I have to say, like, my dogs usually listen to me when I really am behind it and I mean it. They sort of get that urgency, and that I'm demanding it now because it's required for whatever reason. A car is coming, or, there's a situation where it's like, no, now you do need to come. Like, right now, I do require you to come. And they will actually do that in that situation for the most part. Um, and if they don't, then there's usually always something else too. So even with dogs, it's like that in a sense. If you're really willing to have a look at, is your dog actually just doing it because, yes, you've trained him so well, or is he doing it also because he's really choosing it?
Yeah, there's a big difference when we talk about, having a bond or having a relationship with an animal, where there is that willingness, there is that desire, there's that willingness to be connected with you. And honoring and respectful of what your relationship is, rather than being completely, I guess, subservient in a way. I see a lot of animals that are very highly trained, but they're very subservient. You know, they know not to put one toe out of the square. And a lot of the times I've seen the joy in those animals has gone as well. Yeah, they're great dogs when it comes to being trained and doing what they're told. But, you know, for me, that sense of personality and that sense of being is what brings me the joy. That's where I'm at personally with animals that are highly trained.
Yeah. And please, guys, don't come to conclusion that if you're training your animal, that you're a bad person or something, and that you're taking away the spirit, because a lot of people go down that road too. Oh, if I train my animal, I take their spirit away, or if I demand something from my animal, I will take their spirit away. No, you're just also in that moment willing to demand something. And the funny thing is, like, you know, if the demand is not going against the grain of that animal, they will also a cat will do whatever it is that you're asking for, if she or he can deliver. I mean, with Paul, my ongoing conversation right now is about the bird hunting with him. And that is something that I'm asking him to change, something that goes completely against the grain of his nature. As a cat, he loves to hunt. Okay, cool. Now I'm asking him to not hunt these birds. And so that's a big conversation, and that's a big to do. Um, but like other things where it's not against his nature, he's been actually super cool about. For example, for me, it was from day one very clear that he had to be in at night because I have coyotes. And so to me, that wasn't necessarily because I didn't trust him, but that's for me. I need him to be home at night so I can be relaxed. And so that's a demand I have. And that was from day one. That was a very loud demand in my world. And he's been amazing that way.
And even that, Susie, I mean, whenever I hear you communicating or I hear other people talking, I often refer back to how it would be in the wild, so to speak, if he was still in a litter. And of course, the lead cat would be the one that is willing to deliver any energy to protect their litter and to be the leader that makes sure their whole litter is safe and secure and in the best environment possible if they're going to rest, or that they're not in, predator territory. So to be that energy and for him to get that, that's an incredible, bond that you've got. And my interpretation of this, and you can give me some feedback, is, does he feel safer? Like, would he feel more secure in himself, or more secure looking to you as a leader from time to time, knowing that you actually have that energy that is there to protect his life and ensure that he's safe?
Well, I would hope that that's going on for him because, of course, that's also my desire for him. I don't wish for him to be eaten by coyotes, um, for his sake too. So yes, I do hope that was created with that. And as you were talking, I have just realized too that actually asking him to be home at night is kind of also a little bit against the grain of a cat, because cats love to, you know, uh, they love to be active at night. They're more a night animal. And yet he's the opposite. Like, he's active during the day and he sleeps at night with all of us. So it's actually pretty cool that way too. And so in that sense, he has actually given a little bit of, energy to acquiescing into that situation. And he never walks around and meows and tries to get out at night. He never once did. So yeah, so it's interesting how animals are willing to change their way. I guess if the demand you're making also kind of works with them, and I have to say, for me personally, if he was a cat that would meow all night to get out, I'm not sure what I would do with that. Because
I know
that
what
really,
you'd
yeah.
do. You'd ask a question. or several questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's the really, I think that's even for me, that's a really new perspective. That question of, okay, can they deliver this? Can they be this? Can they make this choice? Because you're including them in the choice rather than taking away that choice and doing the control and doing the domination, which, if an animal has its own choice, it's going to make a different choice at some stage anyway. So, but when we don't come from that place of expectation or force or that dominance and let them know they have a choice, it's like, and Paul's obviously gone, okay, yeah, I can work with that. I can do that with you. So there is leeway, there is that ability in his world to work with you and understand that, okay, yeah, I can do this. We are a family. We are a litter in his eyes, the dogs and you and Sandy or whoever else is around. Yeah. So a question for you too, Susie, is because you travel quite a lot, do the people the animal sitters that you have, do they kind of follow the routine that you have got these animals into? Do they, what happens when you go away?
That's a great question. And, I mean, there's certain things that I'm adamant about, which is, for example, Paul needs to be in at night. But I don't have, yes, I tell them what I usually do, but they have
Mhm.
their own routine. And they have to have their own routine. They can't live my life. And I do get that the animals will adapt to whatever they're doing. So, you know, I mean, obviously, we're all kind of going to be feeding around the same time. you know, there's certain things that just work and it's easy because it's been basically just something we're doing. But at the same
Mhm.
time, hey, I'm not going to try and micromanage them. Um, and, you know, um, yeah, I think that for the most part they are basically doing their own thing, and I'm sure they're doing their own thing in some ways where, for example, like walking with Paul in the afternoon. I know that my house sitter is way more concerned about that because it's Paul is not her cat, and she
Mm.
doesn't want anything to occur while she's on a
Yeah.
walk with him. So I don't know how often she goes. I don't know how far she goes. And I won't challenge her on it because this is out of her comfort zone.
Mm.
So I'm okay with whatever she chooses,
Mm.
because Paul still has a life. Like it's not like he's missing out on something. And then when I'm there, I'll do my routine with them again. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because I know that's often a bone of contention with a lot of people. They won't go away because they don't want to have somebody else come in and disrupt the routine or, do something that is out of the ordinary and it is this very controlled expectation of, well, this is how I want them to be looked after or where they need to go for a walk or what occurs rather than, like you said, this is what I would like, this is what happens normally, and it still has to fit in around you. So for those of you that are a bit control freakish around your animals and you maybe are stopping yourself from going away or having a weekend away or a holiday because of that, what question could you ask that will create the greatest ease and peace for you and your fur kids? That it doesn't have to stop your life, because I think a lot of people do. Again, another massive topic of assumptions where people stop themselves from doing something because of an animal. They've got these expectations or rules that they've set for themselves in regards to being an animal owner or a carer, when it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Awesome, Miss Susie.
Yay.
So you have what day are you up to now with your process for the earth? People
I
may
think
not
we're
be aware of this, that what you're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, every day I run a body process from access consciousness on the earth together with other people. And today I think is day 134 or something like that.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, it's been really incredible to do this literally in different areas of the world, but also with people around the world in simultaneity. And I've had some great feedback from people that are saying, they have a different sense about the earth, and things are changing for them, for their bodies, for their animals' bodies. And some people have actually noticed that things around them are greener, so they are seeing like a change in their environment. So yeah, it's been really fun. And what the process is really about is changing the desertification on planet Earth. So desertification is actually occurring everywhere, not just in the desert. And so, yeah, what else is possible with all of that?
And where do people find you if they want to join you, Susie? Because you're jumping on right now, I believe.
Yes, I'm jumping on right after this. So if you are in the Earth Wizard Facebook group, I am there usually every day. I'm also on my Facebook page, my public Facebook page, and I'm on my YouTube channel. So if you are in any of the other groups we're streaming to right now, you'd have to maybe find me on my public Facebook page or my YouTube channel or with the Earth Wizards.
Susie Godsey, Godsey, and Susie is Suzy. Thank you, my
Thank you,
friend, for
Viv.
another amazing conversation.
Thank you, Viv. And yeah, I just love our little chats here. They're
Yeah,
so cool. And I
all
hope you
right,
do too. And join us again.
absolutely. Always. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.